Hi and welcome to Craft with Tinker and Miss. Today I'm going to take you through the making of a felt Christmas tree using iron-on products to create an embellishment and using hand sewing or a sewing machine to sew the pieces together. I won't be showing the sewing machine, but I will show you how to do a basic back stitch for hand stitching them together. Okay, so let's get to it. First I'm going to take you to the project. So I'm just going to show you on Design Space. Okay, so here on Design Space you can see our felt trees all set up there, and our embellishments are the letter of the alphabet. Now you can use whatever order you want, whatever iron-on product you want. I've got a piece of red foil to do the background and a piece of gold glitter iron-on to actually do what is currently in red, so we're just going to switch those colours over. So if you wanted a bit of a preview, you could select that. Find it over the side here, select the background, come up to here and change it to red, come over to your A and change it to gold. So you can see the difference there. Now the star and the tree are both cut out of felt, and you're going to be cutting two of those, and you're also going to be cutting a 10 centimeter by 0.5 centimeter strip, which will be your hanging loop. This second lot here is if you're going to use a pen to draw the lines to sew, or if you have a Joy Extra or an Explore machine, you can use any of the pens to do that. With this version here, I'm actually using the perforator tool so that you've got your little holes ready to sew. Now, when it comes to the last spot, you can either just sew it all together, or you can actually add a little bit of filling to make it a little bit of a fat tree if you want it to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do firstly is hide everything that I don't actually need. So I'm going to hide these trees. Okay, so I'm just taking it through here, so I'm just going to select, come across an eye. I'm going to select all of these. Now to make it quicker, I'm going to group them, and then I'm going to hide that group. Okay, now I want to differentiate between the yellow felt and the yellow of the A circle, so I'm just going to change that colour and I'm going to make it a darker colour. So when it comes to putting it onto a mat, it knows that it's a different product. Okay, and I'm just going to come across to Make. From here we're going to tell it on mat. Everything that I'm doing today is on a mat, and I'm just going to confirm. Okay, the first thing I'm going to actually do is our trees. So I'm just going to space them out a little bit further, and you can see your strip here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to rotate that and put it beside the trees, just so that I can have a better amount of felt remaining. Or you could leave it and just move it and place it underneath the trees rather than cutting into this section over here. Okay, so we're just going to go back through. You can see that you've got your stars here. You can see you've got your A and you've got your backing for the red. So now what I'm going to do, I'm onto my first one here. Now it is iron-on, so I'm going to mirror, and I'm going to mirror the A as well. And we click continue. And you can see here that it's telling me to try again. Now my machine is turned on at the moment, but it's been a little while, so I'm just going to open it up and make sure that it's all ready to go. So I'm just getting that set up. I'm just grabbing out a couple of little things that I know I'll need. Okay, I'm just getting that set up. Just have a quick wait now and it should connect up for us. Okay, let me just try that again. and we'll try again. I do apologise, it's never normally like this. But of course there is always a day where it doesn't want to connect. Okay, so I now have my blue light on my machine, so we should now have our connected. So we're just going to press continue. Okay, now popular, browse all materials, and we're going to go iron-on, and we're going to find our foil iron-on and click done. Alright, so the next point is, you can see here that we need our fine point blade. So I'm going to swap you across now to my overhead view, and you'll be able to see. Okay, so we can see here my machine's all ready to go. So I've got my piece of foil iron-on. I've got some other bits and pieces. I've got my threads to sew. I don't have a green thread, so I'm using silver when it gets to the point of sewing it up. I've got my little toolbox here, so this holds every tool that I have for my Cricut. Okay, I've got my snips. I've got my piece of gold glitter, and I have my needle, and this is the felt that you're going to be using. So you can get this at Harvey Norman stores, and then you're going to need your green mat and your pink mat, and at the end you're going to need an easy press mini or a little iron to be able to do the embellishment. Okay, so I'm just taking off my top, just going to flip over my foil, and I know that my is quite small, so I'm just going to line this up here, place it on, place it in, and press start. Okay, so now it'll just cut out the first section of our iron-on design. Okay, so that is done. What I'm going to do to save space and save time, I'm just now going to put my gold glitter onto the opposite end of my mat. Make sure that it's stuck down. Okay, now I'm just coming back to design space. Alright, so this time we're going to go popular. I can see here that I've already got my Smart Iron-On glitter matless. Now it is on a mat because it's a little off-cut. But this way we're telling design space to tell the machine what pressure to use to cut the glitter correctly. So that's just loading and checking the mat. And we press start. So I'll just take you back across to the machine. Very quick, and we are done. Okay, so now I'm just going to take these off the mat. I'm going to sit them on my machine there for a moment. Grab my mat, bring it back over, line up the corner, line up my triangle, my other corner, and roll my cover back on. Okay, next it's going to want to cut our gold. Okay, so we're just going to come back here. Okay, so next we're up to our stars. What we're going to do, take off the cover of our pink mat. Okay, we're going to open up our felt. Okay, so we've got our pink mat here, and we've got our packet of felts. So I haven't opened this one before, so I'm just going to quickly open that up. So they do have 3 stickers on them, one on the bottom and one on each side. So just peel that off, and then you can actually slide out your felt. So there's 2 different greens in here. I'm grabbing out the dark green and I'm grabbing out the yellow. Now you may find, being felt, that the other colours want to come out with it. Okay. So now we just pop that onto the corner, line it up, press it down. Make sure it's pressed down well. Now you can use your brayer for doing this. I'm just going to take that off again and line that up again. So I didn't do the greatest job of lining it up that first time. Okay, so that's now all lined up and it's been pressed down. It's ready to load. So we're just going to come back to Design Space. Now I'm going to go into Popular, browse all materials, and this time we are going down to Felt, and we tell it that we're using the felt, and done. And it's going to tell you to put in the perforated blade first. Okay, so we'll just grab our quick swap. I'll take you back over to the machine. Alright, so in my case here I've got all of my options. So I'm just going to pop off my engraving tool and I'm going to grab my perforated tool. Just going to click that on, make sure it's on, put your toolbox aside, open your clamp B, put your cutting blade up the top, pop in your mat and load. And we're just going to press go. Now it's just detecting to make sure we've got the perforated tool in. Just going to do those 2 stars. This means that if you've got young children who want to do a hand sewn with a Christmas tree, they've got the holes pre-cut that they can easily sew through. Felt is generally quite easy to sew through. This just makes it that little bit easier. Okay, now it is requesting the fine point blade, so we're just going to take out our perforated tool. We're going to swap over and we're going to press go. Now the Cricut branded felt you can cut on any of the machines, including the Joy. Okay, so that is done there. And I'm just going to remove them now from the felt. Okay. Now with the next one, I'm going to show you how to switch the blade. Okay, so we're just going to come across. We're going to put our green felt down. We're going to move our stars. We're just coming back across to Design Space. We're going to go Popular, browse all materials, again down to felt, and done. But what we're going to do is edit, and we're going to go to the rotary blade. You'll get a nicer, cleaner cut. Okay, so the first thing it wants is again our perforated tool. So I always swap my tools over before I load my materials for the first time. Alright, so we're just going to pop this in, load, okay, we're going to press start. And while that's doing the perforated edge, I'm just going to grab out. So this is your rotary tool. It's always best to keep it in the protective housing. It is quite a sharp blade. Okay, so it's just starting that perforation now. Background you can hear some snipping, so what I'm doing is I'm actually trimming down one of my stars. So while that's cutting, what I'm going to show you is just with your star, if it's got some rough edges, just give it a little trim, just to take away the furry edges, just to give it a nice neat look. Now you can hear what sounds like a dragging noise. Don't worry about that, that's just the sound it makes as it's going through the felt. See that they look a lot neater now that they've been trimmed up. Okay, so that's almost done with the perforating, and then it'll ask us to switch across to the rotary blade. So you can ask any questions in the comments about using the Cricut Felt and about cutting it. You may find that you prefer to draw the line on with a washable marker so that you can sew through them. You can just do a basic back stitch to sew through them if you prefer not to have the perforated lines, or if you don't have the perforated tool. So it's now up to loading the rotary blade. So I'm just going to take out my perforated tool and pop it straight back in its toolbox. I always like to keep them put away. Okay, always just hold it away from yourself when you're pulling it off. And load it in. and press go. I like to put the cover into the little side holder. Don't drop it like I just did. Okay, now while that's happening, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut across my foil. Just so I can put this aside. Okay, I'm going to grab my weeding tool and I'm just going to weed that out. Now I do normally recommend put your rubbish bin closer to you. Okay, so there's just a couple of little bits on this to weed out as well. So you can contour out the small pieces if you prefer not to have to weed them out. And just a small dot. So that's my red bauble. Okay, again, I'm just going to trim around my gold letter. Just trying to see where the edge is so that I can keep as much as possible on my leftover piece. And pop that aside. Alright, now with the gold glitter, because it is so thick, you can generally just grab the outside edge with your hand. And then when you find the edge of your letter, just carefully lift it up so that you leave the centre of your letter behind. Okay, so that has finished. So I'm just going to pop that out now. Pop that down. And I'm just going to rest this on here so I can weed out my A. Now, you can always keep that and pop it on the opposite side, or if you prefer, at the end of the day, you could use that on your bauble. So it's 100% up to you which way you want to go. You can use the full letter, or you could use just the small part that you've weeded out. Okay, I'm just going to swap back over to my normal blade, remembering not to touch the rotary side, and just grab it. Just when you're popping it in, just make sure that the sides of the actual bolt are facing upwards, and just slide that in. Okay, so you can see here, just need to slightly turn it so that it slides into the actual housing fully. Now it is a blade that you definitely do not want young children to touch because it is as sharp as it is. Okay, I'm just going to turn off my machine now, close it up, and I'm going to move that back out of the way. Alright, now I'm just going to bring over my Easy Press Mini and my small Easy Press mat. Okay, I'm going to grab my felt, and you can see with the rotary blade how easy it is to just pull that away. Alright, now what I'm going to do is, even like with card stuff, I'm just going to turn it over. To remove my trees. I'm going to turn it around, and you can see cutting felt does leave a little bit of residue, so if you have some wipes, I recommend just grabbing a small disinfectant wipe just giving it a quick clean, take that off. Now those marks that you can see on my mat now if you can see them, are just from where the perforator tool was turning around while it was cutting. But if you love Christmas as much as my family does, these are a quick and easy way to make a gift tag. You can use these as a gift tag if you don't want to stuff them, or you can make them as a tree decoration. If you're a teacher, you could make them for all the students as an end of year option. Okay, so we now have our trees, we have our loop, we have our stars, and we have our embellishment options. Okay, now I'm going to take you back across to Design Space. Okay, now from here we're already done, so we can click cancel now because we've finished a cut. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to home. We're going to go to our heat guide. That's going to open us up onto the Cricut heat guide. Now I'm just going to add the Cricut heat guide to our feed so that you can see that. Okay. Okay, so you can see our Cricut heat guide now. Alright, so we want to click our Easy Press Mini. We want to select the Foil Iron-On. We want to tell it that we're putting it onto Felt and click Apply. And we can see we want low for 30 seconds with firm pressure. Okay, so let's now come back across to our video. Okay, so I'm plugged in. I just need to turn on the power plant. I never overload my board. I always turn my power supply to my Cricut machine off before I turn my Easy Press Mini on. I'm just putting that onto low, bringing across my mat. Alright, so we're just going to pop our ball where we think it's going to fit well. And I'm just going to grab a piece of heat-proof matting to go over that. So I have a Teflon sheet. I always put something over just to make sure. Alright, now 30 seconds. So I just go constant movement. And I just, in my mind, just count to 30. Or if you've got a timer, you can set a timer. But once you've been crafting for a while, you get a good idea of how long that 30 seconds actually is. Now, because I'm putting something over the top, I'm only going to go for around 10 to 15 seconds, which is about now. So I'm just going to put my Easy Press aside. Now I do need to wait for it to cool down. Now if you are going to use your other side, I'm still deciding, do I like my big A or do I like my small A on there? And I think I'm going to go with the big one. So on the other side, at the top, I'm going to put my little A. Just going to line that up there. Grab. Now with the glitter, it's going to be different, so I'm going to go back into our heat guide. I'm going to come back up and I'm going to tell it that I am doing Smart Glitter, still onto Felt, and apply, and it's still going to tell us low for 30 seconds, but it's always worth double checking just to ensure that you've got the right temperature. Okay. So again, because this is only going onto the one, we're just going to actually do our 30 seconds from here. Okay, now the other side is just cooling down because it is a cool peel product. We just want to make sure that we don't accidentally lift it back off the felt. Okay. Now if you're looking at my little raspberry Easy Press Mini, when you're using the Zen Easy Press Mini, the blue colour, it is exactly the same setup. You just have a different colour. If you're looking at, if you have an old raspberry Easy Press in the medium or the large, and you're looking at upgrading to the Easy Press 3, the difference there is you actually have an app where you can set your temperature from. Alright, so I'm just going to move this over to here. You can see my little A. I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. Alright, so I'm just going to peel off this protective layer. I'm going to line up my A. Make sure I'm straight and that I'm centre. Pop that over. So this time we're going to go for the full 30 seconds. So as I said, you can count to yourself, you can use a timer, or just use your built knowledge on how long 30 seconds actually is when you're pressing. So we're just going to continue moving that around just to make sure that that's fully adhered. Now when you are using the different iron-on products, remembering that anything that is textured or glittered needs to be your last layer. So I wouldn't have been able to put a red foil letter onto a gold bauble unless I was using the gold foil iron-on. Using the gold glitter, it needs to be my top or my last product being ironed on. Right, so I'm just going to turn that off now and pop that aside so that it can cool down. Okay, and we can see that I have not quite got it lined up, but that's okay. I'm happy with that either way. Okay, so we're going to move away our mat now, and we're just going to go through the pieces that we have. So we've got our hanging tag, our 2 stars, our 2 trees, and our embellishment. Now, what you'll need is your needle and thread and scissors. So I do a lot of sewing. So Tinker and Miss originally was all about sewing. So my love of making bears and bags is still there, and I still have a very big collection of fabric, and I will eventually make some more sewing projects. So I'll be adding sewing projects slowly over time. Okay, that protective layer is off. And there we go, our nice shiny A. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to turn them over one on top of the other. Now you can see where I've pressed that, it's left a bit of a crease, but that's okay, I'm happy with that still. Alright, so I'm going to grab my silver thread in a moment. But what you're going to do, you're going to start at the top, you're going to sew down and around, or you're going to start at the bottom if you're stuffing it. And when you come back to top, you're just going to actually sew your star onto the top there. Now I am going to trim the star because he is a bit odd in shape. So when I was tidying up the trimming, I trimmed him out of his star shape. But that is handmade. Things don't always have to be exact. Alright, now I am using a Gutterman silky thread. It is one of my favourite threads to use. Now I do normally do a double thread. I'm just going to wind some of that back on to where it holds, trim it off. Now the silky, you will find, rolls itself back up quite a lot. But you're just going to find your two ends. Now if you need to use a needle threader, you can do that. Or if your needle has a big enough opening, you can thread them both through that way. So you're just going to thread your needle with both ends and pull it through. That's going to automatically give you a loop at the opposite end. Now I was going to add a little bit of stuffing to my tree. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. Although I think it'll be easier to do some stuffing from the side possibly. So I may actually start at this bottom edge here. So we're just going to go through. So you'll find where your perforated tool lines are. Just making sure you don't create yourself a knot in your thread. And you're just going to come through. Now you can do it two ways. You can do it as a blanket stitch, or you can do it as just a stitch around, or a back stitch, depending which way you prefer and what sort of look you're actually after it on your tree. Now my thread is not quite cooperating with me. So I'm just going to pull it so that it's even. Make sure that these two ends are still even. Pull it tight. Alright, so if you're doing it as a blanket stitch, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can pull it around and then go under, and that's going to give you your stitch along the very bottom edge. Now my thread is constantly pulling out. That is one of the things with the silky thread. So you can see here I've got our edge stitch. So you can loop it around your finger and do it that way as well. And just making sure that you're going back through that loop that you've created. Now you may find it difficult to initially find your perforated openings, but once you've started, you'll start to find where they are. Okay, now if you prefer to use back stitch, I'll show you back stitch. Okay, so we're just going to come to the top. We're going to find our opening, which is here. Just going to go through. We're going to go back to the previous hole, come through, and you come across to your next hole, and then you come through to your original hole, and you would continue to do that. So on one side you're going to get your even splices, on the other side you'll have where it overlaps each other. Or you can do just a basic in and out stitch. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to rethread my needle because I just pulled out that back stitch, just so that I can continue on with the way that I was actually going. when you get up to the corner, you would just come around, continue going. So sewing does take a little bit longer than when you're doing other types of craft with Cricut, but that is the beauty of being able to craft. You can combine your different mediums together, you can create different options. And you can make everything just that little bit more fun. So you can see here that my thread is rolling on itself quite a lot. But you can see the effect of going around it all. Alright, so we're going to pause that there. And I'll take some photos and I'll add some photos of the completed tray. Thanks for watching, and if you've got any questions, pop them in the comments. Bye!